Hello, 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 hello. Hey, this is Warren Redlick. Oh, hey, Marge. Nice to see you in the chat, Marge. Uh, Starting off, there's some big news going, but before I dive into the big news, that some pretty substantial changes were reported at Tesla, and I'm not sure how much truth there is. This is one of the things where the media is reporting something, and I'm not sure they got it right. But before we dive into that, just some quick positive news. This is from Ray for Tesla. He found this post from Lin Bin, who is co-founder and vice chairman of Xiaomi. Xiaomi is a Chinese electronics manufacturer that has started making electric vehicles. And he came to America to personally experience FSD. And here's his feedback based on his first test drive in April. Went to the Tesla store to experience FSD version 12. Blah, blah, blah. It is completely based on pure visual modeling. I'm very impressed. No need for high precision maps, no LiDAR. Further comments, FSDL feels like a human driver. Look forward to going for a test drive in a more crowded place. So a positive comment from a large Chinese company, very important Chinese company that is making EVs, saying positive things about FSD. I don't think that got nearly the attention that it deserves. So I don't know who Chris Norland is off the top of my head, so I'm not going to address that. But let me dive into the topic, okay? This is Elon going into demon mode. There's this report. Was it reported by The Information? The Reuters has, the information is a paywall. If you go to Reuters and you just search for Elon, Tesla, whatever, this is the news today on whatever mainstream media you want to read, and of course they're just reporting whatever the information reported. There's no outside verification. Nobody's trying to verify anything. So Whole Mars catalog, Whole Mars blogs. My friend Omar says, quoting the information, Rebecca Tanucci, senior director of Tesla's Supercharger Group. That's not her actual title. And Daniel Ho, head of new products, will leave Tesla as of Tuesday morning, the information reports. All 500 people reporting to Tanucci will be laid off, and the entire public policy team previously under Rohan Patel will be let go as well. Now, this is the information, got an email. We don't know the reliability of this. So I was in a space on X with Sawyer Merritt. Sawyer said he had some level of confirmation of the facts, although it wasn't clear how much confirmation he had. And Sawyer posted this stuff as well. And there's some consequences to this, by the way, that are going to be really interesting in a second. So apparently in the email, this is a quote from the email, starting at 10 a.m. Eastern Time Tuesday, I will ask for the resignation of any executive who retains more than 3 people who don't obviously pass the excellent, necessary, and trustworthy test. I have been super clear about this, Elon Musk. So this is the story. Did I do that twice? I guess I did that twice. So the consequence, Elon Musk is no longer following Sawyer Merritt and Whole Mars block. So apparently, my guess is this means Elon did not like these guys reporting that, spreading that rumor. And I don't think the rumor is necessarily true. So let me go to Fractal Elf asks, and I'm going to go through some more about what I think might be misleading about this. But Fractal Elf says, what do we think triggered Elon to demon mode? So demon mode, if you're not familiar with the biography, is Elon goes into these phases where he, just decides, and what I would call it is he decides he's going to stress test the company. So when he took over X, fired 80% of the employees, and did a whole bunch of things to shock the system of the company. If you do, this is my take on it. This is not Walter Isaacson's take. It's not something Elon has said. If you have a company and everything's going smoothly and you never stress test it, then when there's an exogenous shock, a shock from outside, you don't know how you're going to handle it. And you don't, if things are easy, then your company gets fat, it gets careless, it becomes less nimble. So you have to, I think Elon's approach is you have to stress test your company. You have to throw challenges at your company. The famous story in SpaceX was that he just said, let's stack the Starship. Like there was no reason to stack the Starship because it wasn't ready to launch, but let's get everybody out here, bring everybody out here from California, and let's stack Starship. And it was this huge challenge, and it forces people to do stuff. So taking the company and saying, all right, we're letting 10% of the people go. And I think there's a deliberate attempt to reorganize the company. It's like, where are we going in the future? How do we need to reorganize this company to get there? And we've got to trim fat. This is a big problem in big tech is they get comfortable. Google has all this money pouring in. Meta, Facebook has all this money pouring in. And they start hiring what Chamath and Sachs and Friedberg call the professional managerial class. You get all these elite people from, people from elite universities who get paid $250,000, $300,000 a year for not adding much value to the company. And Elon's attitude is, let's look at every job and say, is this person excellent? Are they trustworthy? And are they necessary? Is this person adding value? Are we spending money on an employee who's not adding value? And is this unit adding sufficient value for what it costs us? So you go back to the post, and again, I'm not saying this is accurate. Okay, I want to be clear about this. All 500 people reporting to the news should be laid off. This was reported as Elon laid off the supercharger team. I don't know if I think I didn't save the Reuters article, but the way it was reported and the way people were talking about it was like Elon just cut the supercharger team. It's like, I don't think they cut the supercharger team. So did I? Yeah, so I think it's unlikely that the entire charging team is only 500 people. So, and sorry, here's a critical point. Tanucci is not the supercharger team. Tanucci is senior director of charging infrastructure, or was senior director of charging infrastructure. Okay, and that's bigger than that. It's the supercharging and destination charging business, as well as our charging equipment sales units. Manage and lead a team of 450 and plus employees is about 50. So what I don't know is, like, was she in charge of the manufacturing of superchargers? Was she in charge of, and I think they're manufacturing them in China and in Buffalo, maybe. Was she in charge of the installation? Because it says manage and lead a team, and how much of that was under her purview, and was there another business unit in the company that was doing some of this stuff, and was there a sense that there was a redundancy here? And was the unit that was under her watch adding value? And I remember in particular at Investor Day, she made a great presentation. I would say it this way: she had a great PowerPoint presentation on how they were going to bring more level 2 chargers to places where people park their cars a lot. They have all this great data, so we're going to figure out how we can deploy a whole bunch of level 2 chargers. And then it never happened. So she didn't deliver on something that she said she was going to deliver on. I'm not saying that's the reason, but I think there's more sort of like, okay, what is this part of the company doing, and are we adding sufficient value? And it sounded like, according to what I heard, I didn't read the information story because it's paywall. I heard that from the article that Elon had said, we're going to continue building superchargers where they're critical, and we'll continue, and the ones that are underway. But maybe there's a decision that, hey, we looked at a bunch of the new supercharger stations and they're not really getting used that much. Like, maybe, because my experience driving Tesla, I drove across the country a couple times. I drove 44,000 miles in, I don't know, a year, a little more than a year. And I use superchargers in large swaths of the country, all the way from Florida to California, all the way from Florida to New York and New Hampshire, in Texas, etc. And I never really had a problem with superchargers. Like, I think there's enough. Do you want to add a few more? Yeah, but are they adding too many? Maybe too many. And they do need to add them in other places. Like, they're working on deploying them in Latin America. They need to deploy them. They're adding them here in Asia. So it might be the U.S. supercharger deployment is going to decline a little bit. And when you have there was this intent that they're setting up the superchargers to be able to charge other EVs from other companies, but a lot of these other companies are now shifting to hybrids. So they're not going to be using superchargers. So, Rivian's not going to be that big, and Lucid's, a train wreck. Maybe Hyundai, but, a lot of these companies are going to hybrids. So, that's not a big deal. And then you wonder about Rohan Patel and the public policy team. Supposedly the public policy team, was it the public policy team? The Daniel Ho and the entire public policy team was let go. So Daniel Ho had a new products. I'm not sure, I'm a little puzzled about that because they just announced they're bringing forward a bunch of new products. He was with the company a long time. But the public policy team, what were they? There's this moment like, well, what is this unit accomplishing for the company? And what is it accomplishing for the mission is another issue. So, like, you can look at the Inflation Reduction Act and say that, maybe Rohan Patel and the public policy team played a role in getting that to where Tesla was getting these really cool tax credits. But that bill also created tax credits for the other companies to do hybrids, which made the hybrids more competitive. And it goes away from the mission, which is trying to accelerate the transition to sustainable energy. He didn't actually want the Inflation Reduction Act passed. Tesla didn't need it, but it's bad fiscal policy for the United States in a sense. And then if you're incentivizing hybrids, what are you doing? So, yeah, Fred Blogs, I want to thank you for this. All these people were saying that Elon isn't focusing hard enough on Tesla. And I don't believe that. I want to be clear about this. I think Elon is putting about the same amount of time in Tesla that he's been putting before. There was a period when he was very busy at X, Twitter for, 2, 3 months. But I think he still put a lot of time into Tesla and this idea that he's a part-time CEO. No, when you work 100-hour weeks, if half your time is at Tesla, you're 50-hour weeks. It's plenty. And 50 hours from Elon is like 150 hours from anybody else, 2,000 hours from anybody else. So, oh, hello, Sals J. So Kaya Panda says supercharger team is dev, build, run. Think the cuts were in dev, so no dev is needed at this time. V3, V4, build and deploy is happening. I think there may be if you believe the article, and I'm not sure how much the article is true. This is the thing. We've seen these media reports before, and then it ends up not being true. They just told us that the next generation vehicle was being cut, right? They weren't going to make the compact, right? That was a story in Reuters, like I don't know how long ago, and Elon said it was false, and now it turns out no, no, no. They're still developing the robotaxi, and they're bringing forward a whole bunch of vehicles. Like they get it wrong. Then so how much of this was correct? How much of this was wrong? We don't know. So I think that, but I really want to come back to this point that to the extent that anything is true here, laying off 10% of employees, laying off units that aren't productive, is a system shock to the company. Let's stress test the company. I know that people think that Tesla's struggling right now, but really Tesla's doing fine. Did they have a bad quarter? Was there a little bit of a decline in revenue? And was there a little bit of a bad cash flow quarter? Yeah. But that's going to reverse itself. That was exogenous events. And, I'm sure Elon doesn't like seeing cash flow go negative. But they still have $26 billion in cash. And there's also this point. I didn't save the post, but Elon posted that they expect to spend $10 billion on AI this year between training hardware, training compute, and inference compute. The inference compute is the compute that goes in the cars. That's money they're spending anyway. 2 million cars, $1,000 a car. That's 2 billion maybe. I don't think it's more than $1,000 a car. Could be wrong. Could be $2,000 a car, but I think it's about $1,000 a car. It's a good ballpark guess. So that means 8 billion for inference for training compute. So they're buying H100s. Maybe they're buying some other hardware. Maybe they're buying more, spending more on Dojo. So, but I think this point about stress testing the company, let's rip off, some band-aids and remove some fat and see if we can keep this operation going. And yeah, we're going to bleed a little bit, but adapting to this is something that challenges the company. And you're losing Baglino, very senior executive. Baglino's like the top guy left at the company because for a while there it was Elon, Zach, and Drew were the three key leaders on the company, according to the website. I think Tom Zhu and Vaibhav are in there now. And then you get Martin Vieca, the director of investor relations. Now, I don't think Martin was critical to operations, but he was a little bit of PR, and he was definitely somebody who talked to big time investors. I think he mattered. And I just be clear, I'm a huge fan of Martin Vieca. I'm a huge fan of Rohan Patel. I've talked to both of them in person. I've exchanged messages with both of them. I never like tried to get insider information. They never gave me insider information or anything close to that. Just, conversations about events. I had a question for Rohan about, I had this idea about solar zoning policies and stuff and wanted to talk to him about that. Had a nice conversation with him, a very brief conversation with him about that. But I think both of those guys are great guys. And I think there's this point where, Elon looked at a while back, he said, we don't need a media relations department. Maybe he said, Martin, I love you, but and for all we know, Martin, I could see where Drew said, okay, I know the stress test is coming. I know how hard this is going to be, and I don't want to put the time into that. So this is a good time for me to step out. It's this is a theory that I have that Drew and Martin saw this coming, and maybe Rohan as well, and they said, I don't want to go through another demon mode. I understand you're going into demon mode, and I understand you're stress testing the company. I'm not saying it's not the right thing, but this is going to require me to work 80-hour weeks, and I got young children at home. And I want to put my time in my family, and this is a good time for me to step away. And I got, more than enough money for whatever I want to do in life, and I got a startup I want to pursue in the future, so I'm stepping off. But if they're investing $10 billion in AI hardware, that's huge. And Elon made this post about it and said anybody who's not doing that isn't serious. So, how much of that is Dojo? How much of that is more H100s from NVIDIA? I don't know, but they're really going for it. And it's funny because he said we're no longer compute constrained, and yet they're buying more compute. So they're not compute constrained, but they're expecting to generate a lot more data. And I don't know, like Brad Gurley and Brad Gerstner have a post called BG2 where they're talking about robotaxi. I think they got some details wrong, but they were saying that Tesla's generating a billion miles a month now, which I think is probably an exaggeration, but I'm not sure. Joe says, could the shakeup in the charging department be because they're switching to wireless charging, which would be better for robotaxi? I think it's possible because they acquired a company, something like Hyperion or something like that. They sold the company, they kept some engineers. They've certainly been talking about wireless charging. The wireless charging technology they acquired was not, at the time they acquired it, capable of charging at the same rate as superchargers. Was potentially faster than regular level 2 charging, but not by much. And I think the cost of installing that hardware is high. But I do think it's possible that wireless charging has something to do with this, and these new engineers are doing something different. Thunderfart is brilliant. Hire him. Yeah. Um, so I do think there's a lot going on there. I think fundamentally, just my experience at superchargers was, a lot of superchargers weren't that busy a lot of the time when I was going out. And maybe it's like, we don't really need to add that many superchargers anymore for a while until we really scale things up. And maybe you're correct that when they go to robotaxi, they're going to be using wireless charging, or it's just they're able to stagger the robotaxi charging to when, because people charge when they need to charge, but the robotaxis are going to be able to charge at night, and those superchargers are empty at night. They're going to be charging from like 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. or something like that, and there's plenty of charging room at all these superchargers. So it may be that when they did the math on what they need for robotaxis, it's fine. So I think that's a good point, Joe. I think there's a lot of reasons why they may just have decided, they looked at the company and said, hey, what's the incremental value of the next supercharger station? Unless there's a particular location where there's a problem, it's not that big of a deal. And I know they were talking about doing a 200 unit supercharger in Yeehaw Junction, which is on the way from South Florida, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach to Orlando on the Florida Turnpike. I think it was off the turnpike on a side road, but that, like right near the exit on the turnpike. But 200 unit supercharger, and I was like, I don't know if they need that. So, is it reasonable to assume 100,000 minimum FSD Chinese subscriber base going forward? I don't know. I don't know what the number is going to be on China for FSD. Zoltan says inducting charging efficiencies above 90%, even the crappiest tech. The company they acquired was at 94% efficiency with wireless charging. I think the real advantage of the inductive or wireless charging is you have less moving parts. There's less things to break. Like the upfront cost of installing the inductive charging might be higher, and I'm not even sure that's true. But the long-term cost of having a cable and then there's some issue that somebody talked about that for some elderly or disabled people, it's hard to those cables. If you've ever used a supercharger, the cables are kind of heavy. For some people it may be too heavy and it may be difficult. That if you go with inductive charging, I think that becomes less important in a robotaxi world, but maybe. Sitting here working at Tesla, shaking my boots, no morale, kind of just waiting for an email to come my way. Well, the quote was, let's pull up the quote. Excellent, necessary, and trustworthy test. So, are you doing excellent work? Are you considered trustworthy? If you've been at Tesla for a while, you're probably considered trustworthy. Are you excellent? That's, are you doing good work? And then necessary is like, is your job adding value to the company? And, I can't answer that question. I don't know what your job is. So you have to know in your own job. And, frankly, if you've got experience at Tesla, the one thing I would say is you probably can get another job quick because Tesla's great experience and a lot of employers respect that. Paul says wireless charging possibly get to 93% efficiency. The company they acquired was already at 94%, and I'm sure they're engineering the hell out of it. I'm not going to talk about Thailand yet. Oh, how's the progress? Do you see more expansion in Thailand? They're adding superchargers. There was a new supercharger in Chumpon, which is a place I visited, which is on the way south from Bangkok. There's this long stretch of Thailand that goes south to Malaysia, and there were no superchargers south of a place called Hua Hin. So it's like 10 hours of driving with no superchargers. And Chumpon is 5 hours down. So add one in Hat Yai, and you've got it covered. And maybe probably add a couple more. Phuket would be a popular place for one. You can have lots of fun with inductive charging. Just put a steel, Is Tesla being shorted? Tesla's always being shorted. The shorts are getting burned. Um, I did check, and it looks like the stock is down a little bit today on this news, which is typical. Like I don't see how this is bad news. This is Elon saying, when you understand Elon, when you understand how he runs his company, read the biography. If they made these cuts, they made these cuts because they realized these units are unnecessary. These people are not adding value, and we got to stress test this company, and we got to move forward. Um, Cybercab likely save a lot on batteries with inductive charging. I'm not sure. We know that the Cybertruck has wiring for inductive charging. So it's very likely they are planning on going to, they wouldn't have put that in if they weren't planning on going wireless charging in the future. We just don't know how much. Warren, if you had one question for Elon, what would you ask him? Can I ask you more questions? No, I would, I don't know. That's a good question. I'd have to think about that one. Zup says wrong supercharger. They're desperately needed in California. Well, he said that they would, he said, um, the article said that they were going to continue to install chargers where they're critically necessary. I can understand that you have your limited experience with one area of California where you're seeing problems, but I supercharged in California and I didn't have a problem. I was in California and I didn't see a problem. My brother had a Tesla in California. He didn't have a problem. I have plenty of friends in California who don't have problems. So the fact that you have a problem doesn't mean there's a big problem. It means you have a little problem. And they're aware of it and they're working on it. Well, wireless charging doesn't need Optimus. And humans can wirelessly charge. I don't think it's that sensitive to parking it perfectly. Well, FSD and sorry. I don't normally police the chat, but I don't see any of my moderators there, and I saw a comment that I thought was inappropriate from 99. Your comment was inappropriate. You're iced for 5 minutes. If you do it again, you're out. What is my outlook for Tesla next 5 years? I think we're going to see robotaxi solved within 2 years. And when robotaxi gets solved, there's a podcast called BG2. It's Brad Gerstner and Brad Gurley. I was just watching it. My friend Matt Smith, you guys probably know Matt Smith. Matt Smith suggested watching it. He thinks they're modeling it wrong. I think they're modeling it wrong. I think people don't understand how much lower the cost per mile is with an EV robotaxi compared to a current gas Uber. It's just so dramatically different that when you amortize the vehicle over 1,000,000 miles, the next generation vehicle is very clearly going to be lithium. The robotaxi vehicle, very likely to be a lithium iron phosphate battery. Lithium iron phosphate batteries last longer. The vehicle is very likely to be engineered to last 1,000,000 miles. So you amortize a $20,000, cost of Tesla's probably going to be $20,000 for the vehicle or less. $20,000 vehicle over 1,000,000 miles, that's 2 cents a mile. You do the tires right, it's another 2 cents a mile for the tires, maybe less. The electricity cost, if you make it more efficient, you get 6 miles per kilowatt hour up from 4.5 for Model 3. You're saving a little bit on electricity. And then, of course, you're going to do more solar, so you're saving a little bit more on electricity. I think they can get their running costs, total all-in cost per mile on the on the robotaxi vehicle, the Cybercab, down to 10 cents a mile. And then if you figure half the miles are unpaid, it's 20 cents per mile per paid mile. If you're charging $1 a mile, you're making 80 cents a mile gross profit. You do 100,000 miles a year, and you get 50,000 miles are paid, you're making $40,000 a year in gross profit. It's crazy. And then you have 10 million vehicles, you make $400 billion in gross profit. And I think these numbers are conservative. I think it takes a long time for the price of a ride to get down to $1 a mile. And I'm going to be doing a whole video on, maybe I'll do it tonight. No, it's not going to fit with this. I want to do a whole video on my view of how robotaxi spreads. I think this is a really important topic that I'll be talking about. Is battery recycling doesn't make sense? Yes, battery recycling makes sense. Redwood Materials is doing it. Tesla's doing it. It's fine. Google tried. It's not about inductive charging in the pavement. It's of having inductive chargers. You saw Tesla showed an image of having inductive charging in your garage, and I think they may have inductive charging superchargers. I'm not sure the technology is good for supercharging, for charging at 250 watts. I know it can do 36 watts, right? Can they ramp that technology to be able to do 150 kilowatts or 36 kilowatts? I know they can do 36 kilowatts. the company that they acquired and got the engineers from. And they ramp that up to 100 kilowatts, 150 kilowatts, 250 kilowatts. If you're charging at night with robo taxis that only have 54 kilowatt hour packs or 50 kilowatt hour packs, 100 kilowatt charging might be enough. So how would you see Elon, and what what he does if you were delusional? I don't even know what that means. Have you stopped battery modeling? I don't talk about the battery revenue model as much because I think the robo-taxi model and the Optimus model are more persuasive long term. I think it's much more likely that we are going to see robo-taxis and Optimus working and generating revenue and making money. And so the battery revenue model becomes kind of irrelevant. You can use the battery revenue model, but it's hard to say like, well, because the revenue per kilowatt hour on a robot is just insane, right? The robot only has 2.3 kilowatt hours of batteries and might sell for $100,000. So just one way of looking at it. Robert Hirsch says, just guess, thinner stainless on frame for Cybercab, 4 wheels, 2 4-seater. I think that Cybercab will be a 4-seater. I didn't think it was going to be stainless steel exterior until Elon called it Cybercab, and that made me wonder. I think it's a 4-seater. I think it's 4 wheels for sure. I don't think they've had any plans to do anything other than a 4-wheeler. So, and there's some theories that it's going to be a 2-seater, but my gut says they're not going to do that. My thoughts on Troy's latest post. We don't call them tweets anymore. We call them posts. Troy Dislike said that deliveries will be less than last year. I think he's wrong. Troy's pretty good. I don't like him, but he's pretty good at his predictions, so we'll see. 600 kilowatt technology is coming. I haven't seen anything about that. The issue with Optimus is there are a lot of big names in that space. No, there aren't. There's a lot of small names in that space. There's one big name, and it's Tesla. There's one company in that space that can manufacture at scale. There's one company in that space that has a lot of data for real-world AI. There's one company in that space that has a good infrastructure for doing AI modeling for real-world AI. Nobody else has what Tesla has. Would I consider investing or becoming owner of charging stations? Not something that excites me, no. I did have the idea of building my solar farm homes and overproducing electricity and making the money back by putting chargers on the street, but that's I don't think I'm pursuing that in Thailand. So that was a Texas idea. Energy business, I think, will continue to grow and will continue to do well. And I think they actually raised price of Megapack recently. So, in which way do you differ from a delusional person concerning Elon? I don't really understand your question. I'm offering you my analysis, and if you don't find my analysis persuasive, then why are you watching my channel? I don't think I'm delusional at all. I think Elon. Am I delusional because I think Elon can land an orbital rocket booster? I mean, that's I think they just had, but they had or they're about to have the 20th reuse of a rocket booster, or they think maybe they've done it twice now. And all these brilliant people said that it was never going to be done or it was never going to be practical, and now they dominate the launch industry. So yeah, I guess I'm delusional in thinking that Elon can build a rocket company that dominates the launch industry, and they can build this. I never even anticipated they'd build a satellite company that would dominate, internet, dominate the internet for people who are, not don't have access to good internet, good broadband. Why don't I like Troy? I think Troy is very good at something that's very unimportant, which is making short-term predictions of deliveries for the quarter. And other than that, I think he's very negative on Elon and doesn't make a lot of sense. And that's what is it called? There's a term for it where you're good at one thing and then you think you're good at other things. I think he's gone really, really negative on Elon, and I don't think it's helpful. So, and he blocked me, by the way. Do I realistically think batteries are still on an improvement curve, weight per kilogram, watts per kilogram? Yeah. No, they're definitely on an improvement curve. But the improvement in energy density is not very important. Lithium iron phosphate batteries are enough, and they're not very energy dense. So the robo-taxi vehicle, the Cybercab, is probably not going to use particularly high energy density batteries. It's not very important. Thunderfart. Yeah. My favorite Tesla analyst online. Oh, it's Jordan Giesecke. Is probably one of my favorites. I love James Stevenson. I don't watch him as much, but I love James. Anybody with a Rebellion Air tag, I usually like them. There's a couple of exceptions. What do I make of the lack of Optimus updates? I don't think there's been a lack of Optimus updates. They gave us an update not that long ago with a next generation Optimus, and I'm sure they're coming up with a next generation after that. Do I think Elon may sack Tom Zhu? Doesn't look like it. Tom Zhu was with him in China, and things in China went well. I think Tom Zhu might be his right-hand man at this point. 6 of the 10 biggest corps are in energy. That's where the money's at. The money's everywhere. Elon is playing 4D chess. He gives us our future. His future we cannot understand. Yeah. What do I think about? Who is Chris Norland? I keep seeing this question. What do I think about Chris Norland? I don't think about Chris Norland. I don't know who he is. I hope I've answered your question, Roland. I don't know who Chris Norland is. I don't know what you're talking about. So this demon mode thing, I want to get back to this. That my understanding of what's happening is stress testing the company and reorganizing the company for a future where Tesla, becomes an AI and robotics company. I think that the team sees it. I think Ashok sees it. And this is a key point. When Elon says stuff, and he's the only one saying it, maybe not such a big deal. When Elon says it and the team is backing him on it, and the team is saying the same things, and Ashok is saying the same things, right? Ashok is the director of the autopilot team. That's a sign that it's real now. So when Elon's talking about Starship and he's coming up with crazy stuff, okay, no big deal. When Gwynne Shotwell says the same thing, okay, wait a minute, this is more realistic now. Omar says, I live 10 minutes away from Boca Chica Beach, which is where SpaceX has the Starship operations, gateway to Mars. What do they call it? I forget. For some reason, I can't remember the name. They have the most impressive company I've ever seen. There's a ton of money moving daily. So I've been to Starbase. I've been to Starbase, probably spent more than 24 hours in total at Starbase, and spread over several days. And yeah, the volume of work that is happening at Starbase is insane. I'm not talking about the money, just the volume of work. The volume of work that's being done, the amount of growth that we're seeing is amazing. What do I think about Japan's EV adoption? One of the most challenging places for Tesla. Good question. I have a theory about Tesla in Asian countries. What I'm seeing in Thailand, what I saw in Japan when I was in Japan for 3 months, that it's very difficult to grow sales of cars. And if you think you're shifting to this is my theory. If you're shifting it's part of the video I'm going to do in the future. If you're shifting to a robotaxi model, and you expect to stop selling cars and start selling rides in the future, it doesn't make sense to invest in the infrastructure for selling cars if you think 3 years from now you're going to stop selling cars to consumers or largely stop selling cars to consumers. Right? I think they'll still sell some small volume of cars to consumers, but I think once they cross that threshold, then they sell cars to robotaxi fleets and they keep cars for themselves. And they'll sell, the Roadster and the Model S Plaid to people at, crazy high prices. I will miss Jordan's 4680 Gen 3 and 4 beyond scientific analysis. I don't think Jordan has stopped doing analysis. I just talked to Jordan Giesecke, and he is continuing to work on his videos. He's very driven by that. I think he's going to be making videos for at least a couple more years. So why has nobody been to the moon in nearly 50 years? Because technology doesn't move forward if you don't force it to move forward. And Elon has talked about that. Huawei announced 600 kilowatt supercharging station. So a 600 kilowatt supercharging station doesn't make sense unless you have a 200 kilowatt hour battery pack, because your vehicle can only charge at 3x the size of your battery pack. So if you have an 82 kilowatt hour pack like a Tesla Model Y or a Tesla Model 3 and the long range versions, then you can only charge at 250 kilowatts. You can't go over that because generally speaking, there's a limit of 3x your size of your battery. Now, Cybertruck's at 123, so maybe the 350s might be coming in version 4. We'll see. Public policy is supposed to expand number of localities where Tesla could sell directly and coordinate charitable giving. Texas is a big black eye for them. Worldwide progress seems to have been slow. So my theory is that they've actually decided not to expand, rather than blaming that on public policy team. I don't think there's been a big problem selling cars in Texas. I think it's that it's really heavy lift to sell cars in Japan. It's a really heavy lift to sell cars in Thailand. There's so much competition. BYD is very competitive. There's, Thailand is a pickup truck country, as a pickup truck country. The top two, number one, two, and five best-selling cars in Thailand are pickup trucks. Ford Ranger style pickups, the Isuzu D-Max and the Toyota Hilux, and then the Ranger's number five. Um, Josh, DM me when you're in October on X. I'm on become verified and DM me. Japan should work well for FSD. They change cars every couple of years or something like that. Well, no, I think we are head towards a world where the vast majority of people who own cars decide to stop owning cars and they decide to start riding in robo-taxis. And the problem is that in some countries, the price of a robo-taxi ride has to be much lower than it is in the US. So it takes a while to spread robo-taxis to those countries. Dan Ives was sounding positive this morning. Dan Knives. I call him Damn Knives. Dan Ives is not a reliable analyst. He doesn't really understand Tesla. Hyperloop. Why are you bringing up stuff that's completely irrelevant? All right. FHS appears to be trolling the space, the channel. So I'm putting you in a timeout for 10 minutes. And then if you do it again, you're out. I'm not a fan of trolling, and Hyperloop's completely irrelevant to this conversation. Panda, imagine the Tesla stops selling cars, maybe just a bone for Franz, only focus on Roadster, SX, and Cybertruck, abandon X, Essent 3, and Y long-term, Robotaxi. Well, this is one of the things that maybe we should talk about. When Tesla, and if you look at the slide deck from the earnings call, they said that they're bringing forward multiple models, including more affordable models. Plural. This is all plural. So I'm expecting by early 2025, we're going to have 3 or 4 new models coming from Tesla. The affordable models, probably something like a smaller Model Y, maybe, with 48-volt wiring, maybe what do you call the steering? Oh my God, my brain is fried. The steering that doesn't have a linkage. Oh my God, my brain is fried. The motors that don't have silicon carbide and reduced rare earths, a lot of things are going into that, I think. Neuralink will make transportation obsolete, and maybe they've gotten ready, maybe they figured out structural pack and they're ready to roll out vehicles with structural pack that are better. Neuralink will make transportation obsolete in many cases, no. No, I don't think so. How long before FSD is up and running in China? I think that they just got approval to start testing it. So we'll see, maybe 6 months. I don't know. When do you think we'll start seeing an LLM-based voice interaction added to the Teslas? I think that's probably 6 months to a year. I mean, I think Grok will be in the cars in a few months, but voice-based might take longer. I'm not sure. Steer-by-wire, thank you. Oh my God. Steer-by-wire, drive-by-wire. Because if the vehicles have steer-by-wire, drive-by-wire, it's easier to make them for markets where the cars drive on the other side of the road. Thanks to everybody for fixing that. It'll be interesting to see the type of vehicles we can make based on not having a steering wheel. Optimized seating. Yeah, that's going to be radical. That's what we're going to see in the Cybercab. What are the chances we ever get the big Cyberquad that was supposed to be an option for Cybertruck? I definitely think that Cyberquad is a very low priority for Tesla. I'm not saying never. It's just I don't think that's a priority. I don't mean yoke. I mean steer by wire. New condo. What? Elon's 4D chess game. The rest of the industry. Yeah, I think people don't get it. Can you explain the unboxed model in more details? Not sure what it'll look like. So unboxed is a process for building the cars, and that's going to be for the robo-taxi vehicle, the Cybercab, and that's going to happen. Maybe going to production late 2025, early 2026. How much of FSD is priced into the stock price? I don't think FSD is priced into the stock at all. Any risk that laid off employees, shareholders vote against Elon's pay package and sell stock? I don't think the employees own that much stock. Right or wrong, bad look that he made $56 billion pay package while the little people lose their jobs. Well, he made the $56 billion pay package before. This isn't like a new pay package. This is the pay package he was supposed to get. Drive-by-wire like in airplanes, yes. I'm thinking that the multiple new models may be a US, Chinese, and German variant of the next generation. Well, it's not the next generation platform because the next generation platform is going to be use the unboxed process, and that's not as soon. So they got new vehicles that are going to be built on the existing assembly lines. Robert Hirsch, Warren, quick Trump versus Biden, advantage, disadvantage to Tesla China relationship. I don't talk politics on this channel, and I don't think that's particularly big deal anyway. Do I think they will unveil the Roadster 2 on August 8th? I like that idea, but I don't know. I think that Roadster has become less and less of a priority. It's not a game changer for the company. It's not a game changer for the mission. I do think it'll happen. I just don't think it's like a major priority for the company. I think a stainless steel van based on a Cybertruck architecture is a possibility. So I had a conversation with a key person at Tesla that I won't name. I probably have said it before, but I'm not going to say it now. Um, that the stainless steel for Cybertruck was particularly for Cybertruck. That the use cases for Cybertruck, you want that stainless steel, and that the stainless steel doesn't really make sense for a lot of other applications. Now, maybe they figured out, hey, now that we've actually done this and we got the manufacturing down, maybe they figured out, hey, this stainless steel thing really does make a lot of sense. I don't know. Cybertruck is certainly a lot heavier than I expected, so that part didn't go well. Maybe they can license Cyberquad for others to build. Yeah, maybe. Will the new platform be stainless steel like Cybertruck? I don't think so. I just talked about that. I don't think they're going to do stainless steel, but it may be that in the process of manufacturing Cybertruck, that is one of the things they figured out. Hey, we're saving a ton of money by not painting this thing. And if it's a robo-taxi vehicle, right? When you're making a car, people want to be able to choose their color, right? And it's a fairly low-cost thing to paint cars different colors. It's a more expensive thing to wrap a car. But if you're doing cybercab and you're giving people rides, then you don't care what color the car is that's picking you up for your ride. That's not a big issue. NVIDIA, but the cars that they sell, to the extent they continue selling cars in the future, they might want to be able to paint them and give people the choice of paint color anywhere. And I think, long run, unbox process makes the painting more efficient. NVIDIA and many others are looking at bots as well. Any worry about competition for Optimus? Lucky for Tesla. So first of all, I'm not terribly worried about competition for Optimus because I think Tesla has a massive lead. Second of all, I think the market for humanoid robots is so large that if Tesla only gets 20% of the market, it's still insane value. So makes sense for robotaxi. Okay, we're getting a lot of comments here. I don't see inductive charging being put on consumer cars except as an option, adds weight and complexity, reduces range and charging speed efficiency. So it doesn't reduce range. It's not particularly bad for efficiency. And we know that Cybertruck has a port for it. We know that they wired Cybertruck for it. So that's a consumer car. I think it's possible to have military equipments that are electric. Yes, I think Cybertruck would make a great military vehicle. How far behind do you think a Tesla app store is from Tesla's going to level 5 autonomy so passengers can use apps while riding? I think that that's not that big of a deal because I think people are going to use their. This is like a thing. Like I don't know why they put the screen in the back of the Model 3. I think most people in their cars are using their phones. They're not interested in using the screen on the car. I'm sure that they know more about this than I do, but I think in general people they're gonna use a phone to get the ride. So why wouldn't they use their phone in the car? Maybe the car offers Wi-Fi or something. I don't know. If they made a cut down 2-seat Tesla 3 variant with a 40 kilowatt hour battery, it would be much cheaper and wouldn't cost more than the 3 or Y. I don't see them making a 2-seat Model 3. No. And 40 kilowatt hour battery in the Investor Day presentation, they talked about a 53 kilowatt hour battery for the next generation vehicle, for that class of vehicle. So I don't think they're going to 40, but 53 kilowatt hour lithium iron phosphate with the price of batteries coming. Don't forget, price of batteries is coming down fast. And I believe Tesla is working with CATL equipment to build a lithium iron phosphate battery production system in maybe Nevada. Robo-taxis can be wrapped in advertisements, but I don't think that's going to generate a lot of money. And I don't think that's something Elon would like. I think that's one of those kind of like, okay, it sounds like a good idea, but it's ugly. Optimus will mine asteroids one day. Yep. Yeah, that's one of the things wrong with the Expanse. Like, why aren't there robots in space doing all this dangerous work? Will joyrides end as a result of robotaxi? I think humans will continue driving cars for at least 20 years. It's going to take 20 years for robotaxis to replace human drivers. You just won't have enough vehicles to replace all the demand. And as you lower the cost of robotaxi rides, you increase the demand for rides, and so it's going to be a while. What about Model 2? Long time nothing heard. There is no Model 2. There never was a Model 2. You've never heard about Model 2 because there's nothing to hear about Model 2 because it never existed. Will Tesla Energy protect the grid from going down? Well, megapacks do protect the grid from going down, yes. And power walls in some circumstances when they have virtual, I forget what they call it. They use Powerwalls as a group to create a virtual backup. Why did they make the Cybertruck before Gen 2? First of all, it's the next generation vehicle. Second of all, because it was ready sooner. I think the engineering going into the next generation vehicle is really insane. There's a lot of bigger changes. Like there's big changes for Cybertruck. There's even bigger changes for the next generation vehicle. And pickup trucks are really important because in the United States and in Thailand and maybe a couple other countries, they really do suck a lot of gas and pollute a lot. And that's a class of vehicle that's very, very high volume in the United States. I mean, the potential market for Cybertruck in the US is probably 1 million units a year if they get it right. Tesla should consider installing HUD, even if it's an option. HUD is unnecessary in a robotaxi world. HUD is a heads-up display. It's like a display on the screen of the car, on the windscreen of the car. Do you believe robotaxis will have self-opening and closing doors? I think it's possible to have self-opening and closing doors, but I don't know if it's necessary. It makes sense that they would add that potentially, but I think the practical reality is, the driver can open the rider can open the door and they can close the door. And if they don't close the door and the car can't drive away, they get a notice on their app saying, if you don't close the door, we're going to start dinging you $1 a minute. And if you start dinging people $1 a minute for not closing their door, they'll close the door. That's what they do with the superchargers now. If you don't remove your vehicle from the supercharger when it's fully charged, you get dinged $1 a minute. So people remove their vehicle from the supercharger. And they cut your brake the first time. Microsoft invented the background personification is key. I'm not sure what you're talking about. What about the car that was under the blanket in the show that cost $25,000? So the so-called $25,000 Tesla Compact or whatever is probably another vehicle that would be built on the same production process as the next generation, as the Cybercab. And that vehicle, and I think that's actually going to be a $20,000 vehicle for if they sell it at all, it'll be a $20,000 vehicle. That Tesla's cost of manufacturing will be less than $20,000, like close to $15,000. But what they decided was that production process has been, I don't know if it's been delayed, but they're moving up producing these other vehicles that are coming soon. Do I think Elon is still aiming for 20 million vehicles by 2030? Oh, hi, Declan. Yes, in a sense. I don't think they're aiming to sell 20 million vehicles by 2030. I think they may want to manufacture, and I think it's reasonable to push it back a year or two because COVID pushed a bunch of things back and a whole bunch of other things pushed things back. So I think, 20 million vehicles by 2032, and I think that's manufactured and some of them go into robotaxi fleets, whether it's Teslas or others. Why does Biden hate Elon? I don't want to get into that. I could go on for if I started talking about politics, I'd go on for hours. That wouldn't be good. All this, and we did not talk about Tesla insurance roof. Yeah, Tesla insurance has been a disappointment for me personally. My insurance rates went up on my Tesla in Florida. We were supposed to have Tesla insurance by now. We don't have it. Solar roof has been a disappointment. I think but solar, the problem is that interest rates are so high that it's too expensive to install solar and it doesn't make sense. If you sold the car to the people with the innovation first mindset, what about the rest? I don't understand your question. I mean, you sold smartphones to people with the innovation mind, early adopters first, and then everybody else saw how awesome it was and they took it too. Yes, Elon is Janice Steiner. Thank you. Elon is restructuring for a new growth phase. Absolutely. What's happening at Tesla is they are restructuring the company. They have a vision for where the future of the company is going, and I think he's going to lay it out on August 8th. I thought maybe he would lay it out in the earnings call, and he sort of gave hints of it. But I think on August 8th, we're going to hear a lot more about the future of the company, and it's a lot more robotaxi and Optimus and a lot less selling cars. Not they're going to continue selling cars for the next couple of years, 2-3 years. But once the robotaxi network goes live, it's not going to make sense to sell cars to people. If delusion is not an issue and Hyperloop not irrelevant, then it ain't trolling, right? Okay. I tried HS. I warned you. I warned you. So if you troll my chat, then you get banned from commenting forever. And I gave him a shot. Right? We're talking about Tesla. We're not talking about Hyperloop. We're not talking about delusional Elon. We're talking about Tesla and Hyperloop. $30,000 compact and small SUV coming this year. So I think that the next vehicle's coming. Yes, I think something like a small SUV and maybe a small sedan. But my gut is that Elon doesn't want to do a sedan. So a small SUV and maybe Tesla van. But it was multiple models that are more affordable. So maybe it's a model that's more affordable in the US that's like a small SUV. And, like, kind of like if a Model Y, my opinion, Model Y competes with Toyota Highlander, and the next vehicle might compete with Toyota RAV4, which is a higher volume vehicle. That's my. It's now some people think Model Y competes with RAV4, but I don't agree with that. I think functionally speaking, Model Y can have a third row, Highlander can have a third row. The RAV4 third row is a joke. Um, I know the Model Y third row is kind of a joke too. I could kind of see like a larger Model Y as well. Like if you took the technology for manufacturing Model Y, you made a smaller one and you made a bigger one, and the bigger one replaces Model X, you sell it for like $60,000 or 59,999 or whatever. Um, and you make it, 2 inches wider and 6 inches longer, and you give it a legit third row, and you get rid of the falcon wing doors, and you manufacture it. You take all these manufacturing technologies. I think that vehicle you sell for $60,000, and you sell a quarter million a year in the U.S. and maybe another quarter million around the world. And then if you come up with a smaller Model Y that gets your price point down to close to $30,000, I don't know if they can get it down to 30, but get close to 30,000. That sells big. 3 terawatt hours by 2030 still. I'm not so sure. I mean, the battery manufacturers are making batteries in high volume. I think there's a delay. I think that everything that we talked about for 2030 might be pushed back to 2032 between COVID and Ukraine and all these other conflicts. When you add all these things together, everything's just sort of pushed things back. The Suez Canal. There's all these like little curveballs that have been thrown. My whole theory is that we're all living in a simulation and we were doing too well. So the people who run the simulation just increased the difficulty level and they started throwing things at us. Is Randy Kirk the most annoying Tesla commentator? No, I like Randy. I don't. He's not my favorite, but I like Randy. Do I think Giga Mexico is on hold for more than a year? Giga Mexico, I think, is on hold. But I mean, we already knew that. Giga Mexico's on hold. They're going to start building the robo taxi vehicle in Texas, and once they get that down, then they'll go to Mexico next. That's what they told us. They told us that already. Hi, Jim. You only sold the Cybertruck, but it comes with FSD, and you didn't try to sell it until when? I don't even understand what that question is. People don't understand how much they want Robo. Juan Nguyen, I don't understand your question. You only sold the Cybertruck, but it comes with FSD, and you didn't try to sell it until when? I don't understand that question. Please ask your question again. You should expect more from an American company when it comes to advertisement. I don't. Okay, so Juan Nguyen says, do you see what I'm trying to say? Tesla's advertisement is the worst. It's almost a disgrace to the advertisement industry. Well, considering that Tesla doesn't really advertise much, I don't know what you're talking about. And I'm gonna put you in a timeout. Please try to stay on topic and don't disrupt the chat with nonsense. What do I think of AI Dojo Center likelihood now? Is there a market? Well, there is AI Dojo data center for Tesla is definitely happening. I think there's one that's going up in Buffalo, and I think there's one in California already. There's a monitor lizard on my wall. Are you kidding? I think you're kidding. That's funny though. You got me to look. That's good work, sir. Do I think more nuclear power plants would greatly reduce electricity costs? I think solar will reduce electricity costs, and nuclear power done well would reduce electricity costs. Nuclear power done wrong would not. Got a quote for solar roof for my 2,500 square foot house, $7,000 in 2021. Yes, but Elon was demon mode for Starlink and SpaceX last year, I think. Model V for the van, Model Z for the zombie car. I like zombie car. That sounds cool. I'm gonna use that core glass. Model Z for zombie car. They will be showing Cybertruck in Sweden next week. Does that mean they will be selling them here soon, you think? I don't think Cybertruck's going to be sold in Europe anytime soon, but we'll see. I think that they've got a long time to satisfy the US market, and they've been showing it in Asia too. They showed it in Japan, they showed it here in Thailand. I don't think they're ready for that. Model B for bus. I think they're going to come up with better names than that. Will the robotaxi be self-cleaning somehow? My theory on cleaning is that the robotaxi vehicle will pull into a supercharger, and there will either be a human or an optimist that plugs it in. If it has inductive charging, it pulls up on the charging, but there will be a human or a robotaxi who just opens the car and looks around and makes sure everything's okay. And that doesn't cost that much. You have one human, you pay him $20 an hour. He probably does 20 cars an hour easy, right? Unless there's some really difficult cleaning job, and that's $1 a car. The charging costs $20 or whatever, so that extra dollar is pretty trivial. Monitor lizards. Well, maybe yeah, it's definitely not a monitor lizard. That's obvious. FSD will save so many lives. Amen. Antibacterial microbial materials. I'm sure that they will engineer the cyber cab to minimize those kind of costs. Last shareholder meeting, Elon talked about maybe using Teslas as AI processing nodes. Something about AWS moment. What is your take on that? My general sense is that they would use the inference compute probably on version hardware 4 and hardware 5, probably more like hardware 5. And it's not really that big of a revenue deal. It's like just some added revenue, like $300 a car. And you have to share that with the owner of the car. So I don't think that's going to be a big number for Tesla, but it doesn't hurt. And it's just the world has a huge demand for inference compute. I talked to an AI expert friend about this topic. Someone you guys probably know who I'm talking about if I named him. And he said like 95 to 99% of all AI compute is inference. And some of it is what can be done by batch processing. So you can send it out to the cars and they can do it when they're not busy. When they're not busy driving the car. Will FSD happen in China or US first? I think FSD happens in the US. Well, first of all, FSD is already in the US. I think robotaxi happens in the US first, but China's close behind. And it happens in a limited way in the US and it grows faster in China once it goes. But I think the price of a taxi ride in China is lower than the price of a taxi ride or an Uber ride in the US. So the value is greater having robo-taxis in the US. The profit generation story is greater, but you still make money on, you've got a factory in China making vehicles. You might as well make money there too. Inference computing or idle Teslas, virtual data centers not requiring a build out of cloud DC power. Yep. What is the number one e-car in Japan and when will Tesla take off there? I don't think there is a number one electric car in Japan, and I don't think Tesla is going to take off there selling cars. I think Tesla will take off selling robo-taxi rides. Would not robo-taxis would have dedicated charging? I think robo-taxis will charge at existing superchargers at night when no one else is using them. SUV van combo, versatile configuration for goods transport. Robo-taxi personal use, slightly smaller than Model 3, suitable for Asian configuration streets. I think there might be a version, the model for China or Asia might be different than the model for the US, and the model for Europe might be different too. Update on V5 superchargers. I haven't heard anything about V5 superchargers. V4 for superchargers are already going out. And Polestar seems to have a working prototype. Prototypes are easy. Manufacturing is hard. Manufacturing and delivering profitably is even harder. Yes, so Roka says reports about charging network teams being let go. Any comments or if it's true? So I posted about this earlier. I talked about this earlier. So Rebecca Tanucci, Senior Director of Tesla Supercharger Group. That's not her title. Her title is Senior Director of Charging Infrastructure, and Supercharger is part of that. And it said that all 500 people reporting that Tanucci will be laid off. So the impression I have is that her team was laid off. It's not clear whether they were the only supercharger team. Maybe there's another team doing superchargers and there's a redundancy and they're restructuring the company and they're trying to figure out where they can save money. But there was a report on the information that 500 people were let go from a team that works on that. So I didn't find it credible. Like the fact that the media reports something doesn't mean it's true. Any chance they wheel out a bot by surprise on August 8th doing cool stuff like installing solar roofs? No, I don't think that that's going to happen, Jim. I think that Elon has said they should be doing useful work in factories by end of this year, early next year. So I don't think they're going to be installing roofs anytime soon. I want to see that, but I don't think that's going to happen yet. Cassidy says, I'm an Uber driver on the side. The only thing that I think about is people throwing up in the car when you have the robo-taxi. You think it comes with insurance just like Uber? So I think the deal is that the rider pays for the cleanup, right? If you throw up in the car, then you got to pay for the cleanup. And if you don't you just get billed on your app. Hey, we had to do a $100 cleaning job on your car. You got a $100 bill on your app. And if you don't like it and you fight it, then you don't get to ride in robo-taxis anymore. So I think that's a problem that solves itself. Um, any thoughts on Tesla tires? I think that Elon was asked about tires before, and I think he felt Elon likes to innovate where there's a potential for really dramatic gains. And he said that he thought that the current system of tires was actually very, very good and would be hard to innovate and make a significant improvement. That was several years ago that he had that conversation. Somebody asked him about it. Assuming the past comp package is approved by the shareholder vote, when would we see the next package, would you guess? I would guess soon after, like within 6 months after. You ban people in chat for not typing about what you're typing about, what's coming, what gets here, don't complain. Okay. I'm not going to complain at all. I'm just going to ban you too. Hone Win says, when I talk with people and it's the serious people don't like talk to me, just like advertisement humor sells. Elon Musk is covering severe, serious topics nobody really cares about, does brand damage. Yeah, this video is not about brand damage. The brand damage story is total nonsense. Tesla's brand is doing extremely well. Tesla's what is it? The brand loyalty is 20 points above the next highest company. Tesla's brand loyalty is like 87%, as in 87% of Tesla owners say they're going to buy another Tesla. Lexus is number 2 at 68%. Where's the brand damage? Is the brand damage when Justin Bieber is posting pictures of himself with his Cybertruck? Is it when Katy Perry is posting a picture of herself with Cybertruck? I don't know how long it's going to be before Taylor Swift posts a picture of herself with Cybertruck. Where's the brand damage? What are you talking about? The brand is spectacular. There's this notion of brand damage. This is like some idiots like Lost Gerbil, aka Ross Gerber, and Gary Black, aka Barry Black. These idiots talk about brand damage, and some idiot like media comes up with some bullshit survey that says Tesla has a brand damage problem. The brand is the strongest auto brand it's one of the strongest brands in the world of all companies. And you just like you're talking like you don't know what you're talking about. Just because you read something in a news article doesn't mean it's true. How would a robotaxi detect someone having thrown up or made the vehicle not ready for the next ride? Well, number one, there's an internal camera. Number two, the next rider sees the vomit in the car and reports it. Like, if you were the rider and you looked into the car and you saw vomit in the car and you could smell it, then you would probably report it. And they would check the internal camera and they would, I think the simple strategy actually is that when you get in the robotaxi, you take a photo of the interior. When you get out, you take another photo. And it's built into the app. And you show, hey, the car was clean when I got in, the car was clean when I got out. If somebody is getting in the car and the car is not clean and the previous guy didn't take the pictures, well, now you know. Congratulations, Brendan. Let's go down here. Role model hierarchy, Jesus, Elon, Warren. I don't think I deserve that. Thank you, Dan. Attack the Tesla barely advertises even more legendary. Exactly. Am I more of a bull than CERN basher? I think CERN and I are roughly similar in our bull cases, and then there are like little tweaks to how I look at things and how he looks at things. He and I agree on a lot, and we talk a little bit. I think I had him on my channel, didn't I? If you were to buy a Tesla now, what model would you get? That's a tough one. I would probably get a Model Y. Well, sorry, I would get a Cybertruck, but I'm in Thailand and I don't think I'll be able to have a Cybertruck in Thailand. So if I was to buy a Tesla now here in Thailand, I would probably buy a Model Y. A little tempted to buy a Model 3 long range. But I think, because my driving usage would probably be some long drives and the Model 3 long range has more range than the Model Y long range. If they offer the rear wheel drive Model Y long range, which is close to the same range as the Model 3 long range, then that's probably what I would get. No, I think there'd be a report problem, flag a problem button on the app. Electric charging infrastructure in a lot of countries in Asia is way behind the rest of the world. Lots of catch up to do the rest of the world. Sure. Not just Asia, Latin America too. China has tons of charging infrastructure. Japan has tons of charging infrastructure. Thailand's getting it built out reasonably well already. I believe Malaysia's getting a couple more superchargers. Did I see the All In podcast thoughts on Tesla by ranking Robotaxi? Yes, I did see that, and I thought it was too short. And oversimplified, and a lot of people are criticizing Jason. Oh wow, I can't remember his last name, Jason Calla, whatever. And they were criticizing Jason, and you know, I think it was just they were the format of the conversation was too limited, so you didn't get a lot out of it. I thought Chamath made a lot of sense and Sachs made a lot of sense as usual. What if you vomited in the car? How can you correct the situation without having to be bailed too much money? Don't vomit in the car. Like if you what happens if you vomit in an Uber? Why is this different? I don't understand why people think this is different. Troy says less than 1.8 million cars 2024. He has no doubt about it. Any thoughts? I'm not a fan of Troy Dislike, and I think he gets ahead of himself. He thinks more. He's pretty good at making predictions of on the last day of the quarter, what are they going to report 2 days later? Is he really good at reporting what's going to happen at the end of the year based on what happened? I don't think so. And I think he's probably right. I think he's not accounting for the volume growth of Cybertruck. He's not accounting for the volume growth of Model 3 ramp. He's not accounting for the swing of all the inventory vehicles that will now be delivered. I think he's got it wrong, but he's better at it than I am. Who else can launch a vehicle without badging and everybody knows what it is? Exactly. Oh, hey, Josh. I don't remember that, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen. What's if you emailed me, I'd probably remember better. What's your biggest unanswered question, Warren? Meaning of life? I don't know. I don't really have a lot of unanswered questions. I have a great life. Central Group is having superchargers in the parking lots here. I don't know. I haven't seen that. Possible. I think there's a supercharger in Scion Paragon, maybe. All right, I'm giving Juan Win another timeout because I think he's arguing with people in the chat, and I don't think that's useful. 10-minute timeout this time. Juan Win, you're very close to being banned from ever participating in a chat. Please try to stay on topic and not argue with people and all that. How about that stock price? We're only down 60% from all-time highs of years ago. So I don't actually worry about this. Is a very popular comment that people have. The stock price is up, the stock price is down. Look, stock price is up from recent lows. Stock price is up. You could say we're down 60% from all-time highs. We're also up from recent lows. So stock price is going to go up, stock price is going to go down, the stock price will fluctuate. I'm much more concerned about the long-term growth of the company. If you're worried about short-term share price, this is the wrong channel for you. You can watch, there's plenty of channels. Watch Delete Kevin. You want to talk about short-term share price, watch Delete Kevin. He talks about it. Boring as hell to watch his channel, but that's what you want to watch, go ahead. There's other channels that do short-term. This is what's going to happen to the stock next week. This is going to happen to the stock next quarter. I'm talking about the growth of the company. The company's growing, company's going great. Mo Ben says, I mean, if you were sick and that happened in a sudden, I don't think people vomit intentionally in the car. Who cares whether it's intentional? It doesn't matter. If you vomit in the car, it's on you. It's not on the owner of the car. How is it the owner of the car's fault that you vomited in the car? You have to pay for it. If you vomit in somebody else's car, you got to pay for it. That's just natural, whether it's your fault or not. But it's inherently your fault. Ride hail by end of year. I think that's a stretch. I'm better than Troy. I think Troy has a long history of making reasonably good short-term predictions on delivery numbers and production numbers. I don't think he's that good at long-term predictions on those things. Hey, Dallas, can we assume 5% extra revenue growth over 15 years due to inflation? I'm not comfortable saying that. I don't know the answer to that. Can we stop talking about vomit? Sure. Could your small pod car have good crash safety rating? But the small pod car, the fantasy that Warren will actually build a single passenger electric vehicle for robo-taxi networks would be better in crashes than motorcycles and scooters and bicycles and pedestrians. It would not be better than a Model 3. It wouldn't be close to a Model 3. It would not be better than a Toyota Camry because fundamentally mass is a problem and it's going to be very lightweight. And if you get hit by something big, doesn't matter how crash worthy it is, you're probably in trouble. But if you were in a motorcycle, it'd be worse. I watched Cyber Turtles. Everyone turned on Gary Black. You were a year ahead of everyone. Yes, I think that there's a thing where I think people don't have a good bullshit meter. And for some reason, I picked up on Gary's bullshit very early. I'm more than a year ahead on that. I've been calling Gary's bullshit for, I think, 3 years now. Any comment on FSD subscriber base in the USA in 1 year? Uh, no, I don't. I don't really worry about FSD subscribers. I think the FSD selling FSD or people subscribing to FSD is trivial compared to Robotaxi. Robotaxi drives so much more value than FSD subscriptions. I mean, it's valuable if you never get to Robotaxi, but if you never get to Robotaxi, then FSD is probably not going to be that good, and people won't sign up for it. The compact truck segment is red hot right now. Why not build a Model 3 derivative like the Truckla built by engineer Simone Geltz? I think that Tesla might build a compact truck based on the next generation vehicle platform. I don't think the compact truck segment is hot in the US. It's very hot here in Thailand. Is it possible for me to clean the car myself? No, you're sick. They don't want you in the car. The car's got to go get professionally cleaned. They don't trust you to clean the car. Do you have this problem a lot? Maybe you shouldn't ride in robo-taxis. Maybe you should have your own car because, I don't want you in my car if you have this problem a lot. Do you think the request by the Delaware stockholder to block Tesla moving out will be an issue? I haven't read the documents yet. I've been trying to get the PDF documents that were filed in their application to do whatever they're doing, and I haven't read that yet. I do think it's a potential problem because that judge is a real problem. Will whole Mars turn bearish now that Elon unfollowed him? No. Whole Mars and Sawyer will not turn bearish. Yeah, for people who missed that, Elon unfollowed whole Mars and Sawyer Merritt. Probably because my gut hunch is because they promoted this story about Elon cutting people or whatever, and I'm still not convinced that story is accurate. There's a history of these mainstream media outlets coming up with these stories and being grossly inaccurate. Just happened. Friends don't let friends read Electrek for a reason. Does anyone know that you can buy Tesla with your pension money? I don't know about that. I have no idea whether that's true or not. I don't think you can buy Tesla with pension money. You can buy Tesla with defined contribution pensions in some situations. Right-hand drive FSD incoming by the looks of it in the UK. Yeah. They're going to be doing right-hand drive FSD, but Elon said that would be slower. Do I think Robotaxi should have a new and polarizing look similar to Cybertruck? I think it will. I don't know how polarizing, but I think it will. 100,000 FSD subscribers comes to almost $120 million a year. That's not a lot of money. That's nothing compared to what's going to happen with Robotaxi. 40 million per year by 2040 possible. Vehicle production? Yes, that's definitely possible. I don't know if it's necessary, but I think if you're going to convert the world's fleet of 2 billion vehicles or so, then you need a really, really high volume of vehicles, and 40 million might be too small. I mean, if the vehicles are doing 5 times as much work as a regular vehicle, then the 40 million translates to 200 million. And then you're getting close to replacing the global fleet in 10 years, which is about what you need. I know how many Tesla cars have been sold into China, what impact FSD would have there. I just don't think that FSD subscriptions are going to be that, or purchases are going to be that big of a deal. I think they've sold about 1 million cars in China. If people soil the Robotaxi, they'll have to pay for the cleaning. Whatever form of soiling they do. What made you invest in Tesla? Was it a moment? Okay, Josh, great question. I'm surprised we didn't talk about this when we met. So I was following Tesla for a while. I was following SpaceX for a while. In December 21, 2015, SpaceX lands the first orbital rocket booster. And that was like oh my God, this is amazing. If Elon runs a company that can do that, who knows what he can do with Tesla? Started diving deeper into Tesla, started trying to understand it more, following Gali, I think, following the Now You Know channel. And I started investing in Tesla in February 2016. And I kept digging and kept paying attention and learning and understanding better and getting a better picture. And I kept buying stock. And 2019, I started making YouTube videos about first SpaceX and then Tesla. And that drove me to learn more and more and more. And all along the way, I was building conviction. I was understanding the company better. I was looking at the criticism. This is a really important thing. You can't ignore Tesla Q. You can't ignore the criticism. You got to pay attention to the criticism. You got to say, wait a minute, do these guys make sense? So a really good example is a popular critic of Tesla FSD right now is Dan, what I call Dan O'Doodoo, uh, Dan O'Dowd, real Dan O'Dowd on X. And there's a very common criticism that FSD is somehow unsafe. Now, I've driven FSD beta 60,000 miles, 60,000 miles between my two cars. Some form of Tesla self-driving, 60,000 miles between my Model X and my Model 3. And um, you sit in the driver's seat with your feet at the pedals and your hands on the wheel, and you're able to intervene if the car makes a mistake. Now, here's the thing that nobody who criticizes FSD talks about, and unfortunately, nobody who argues with them brings up. And I bring it up, and they never answer this question. Look at teenagers with learner's permits. Okay, I have two children who learned to drive with me sitting in the passenger seat, or my ex-wife my then wife sitting in the passenger seat, right? And so when a teenager, a 15 or 16-year-old is learning to drive a car, they're in the driver's seat. You, as the adult in the passenger seat, have no access to the pedals and very limited control over the steering wheel. So me supervising FSD, I have more ability to stop a problem than supervising a teenager. So if you don't trust humans to supervise FSD, why do you trust humans to supervise 15-year-olds or 16-year-olds driving with learner's permits? And if you look at the numbers, 15 and 16-year-olds have very, very high crash rates compared to regular drivers. So why do we let 15 and 16-year-olds drive? Right? And they can't answer this question. And so they don't answer this question. And it's one of my complaints is people will criticize the Dan O'Doodoo's and they bring up other things like, oh, you're biased, because who cares if he's biased? Win the argument on this point. Like, tell me that you oppose having 15 and 16-year-olds drive cars, right? Because they have a very high crash rate and it's really hard to supervise them because you don't have access to the pedals and the steering wheel. So how is that safer than FSD? And, the FSD tries to steer into problems. So do teenagers. They have triple the crash rate of regular drivers. FSD with human supervision has a lower crash rate. So you tell me. And that just doesn't come up. Dan B says, SMR Warren brought Tesla to my attention. Very appreciative of that. Yeah, so Stephen Mark Ryan, I think, started after me, but he and I are like, I call him my identical twin cousin, but he's better looking, younger, more charismatic, funnier. So it's kind of like, honestly, Stephen Mark Ryan was so good. I haven't watched him in a while. He's so good. Like, I don't even know why I do this, but it's like, just watch Stephen. We have the same opinion on almost everything. So robo-taxis will initially, I think I think I offer a slightly different perspective, but I really feel like Steve and I are like really wired. But I watched Galley. I watched Now You Know. I don't watch Now You Know anymore. I think they lost it. I think some of the early Tesla YouTubers lost it, like Ben Sullins went off the ranch, the reservation or whatever. Josh says, I think it was when the rockets land. It was the same thing that happened to me too. Yep. Long term is when in 2050 all cars are Tesla. Short term is when you put flowers in all graves, ice. Dano Clown. FSD 12.3.6 is incredible. So excited for the future. I think the important thing to recognize about version 12 is not whether this particular version of version 12 is good enough or better or whatever. It's how frequently are they coming out with updates? Because it seems like it's once a week when it used to be once every 2 months. And how big are the improvements and how big is what's coming? I mean, Elon has said that 12.4 is coming soon and it's a big jump. And then 12.5 is coming after that, and that's another big jump. And so we're seeing faster improvements and bigger improvements. Barry Glock blocked Cern Bastard. He blocked me. He blocked AJ, Alojo. Your child versus FSD is a perfect analogy. Yeah, exactly. Right-hand drive countries have to wait a bit longer. Yep. Teen drivers are usually poor. My brother crashed the family car at 16 on a date because his arm was somewhere buried in a date when driving. Yeah, teenage drivers just make bad decisions. They, have other people in the car. They get distracted by the other people in the car. They don't see the road the same way. I remember when I was teaching my oldest to drive, it was like I kept telling her, teenagers will look like right over the front of the car to try to stay. They're playing the line following game. And the game is really look down the road and make sure that you want to look for problems that are up ahead. So I kept, when my oldest was driving, it was like, do you see that bicycle up there? Do you see that up there? I would constantly be pointing to things that are farther down the road to direct the attention farther down the road. Now went through a bad spell. They're good again now. I don't care. See, this is the thing for me. If you were on the Tesla train and then you got off for some reason, I don't trust you again. Like, because there's a mission, right? If you lost the mission, if you lost the sense of what this company was about, you were nervous about the stock price going down, you don't like what Elon's posting about something, Elon said something politically you don't like, Elon bought a company you don't like, whatever. It's like, you don't get the mission. You don't understand Elon and you don't get the mission. And it's really striking. And now should have done better. And they burned my trust. So that's nice. They've been great as of late. Are you going to hold them accountable for when they were bad? Like, why do you continue to watch somebody? Like, how do you know they're not going to go south again? Like, why would you trust them to be consistent? Stephen Mark Ryan's been consistent. I've been consistent. Holmars has been consistent. Jason DeBolt has been consistent. Bradford Ferguson's been consistent. A lot of us have been consistent on Tesla for a very long time. And Gali took a break, but Gali never wavered. Can I do a video on soiling protocol and robo taxis? I do think it's an issue. Not, just generally, like somebody spills a drink in a car. There's all kinds of things that can happen in the car. Arthur says FSD is incredible. I think they will pull off level 4 or 5 far sooner than most people. Just to get a critical point there, level 4 or 5 is irrelevant. This level system is outdated. It's anachronistic. It never made sense. It made sense when you didn't understand what self-driving cars were going to be like. Now we're at a point where we have a much better understanding of what self-driving cars are going to be like. And it's really simple. Is it better than human or not? Once it's better than human, I don't care what you call it. What difference does it make what the levels are? Tesla economist is now Tesla emotionalist. He's been consistently inconsistent. He's crazy. Isn't 100 million robotaxis by 2040 too much? No. 100 million robotaxis is too little. If you have 100 million robotaxis and they each replace 5 cars, that's 500 million vehicles. There's 2 billion vehicles on the road. 100 million vehicles isn't enough. If you're thinking bigger than just the United States, like I think the saturation point in the United States is like 40, 50 million robotaxis. But then you've got Western Europe, which is similar price point. You've got Australia, New Zealand. You've got Japan, it's a slightly lower price point. China will be a slightly lower price point, but there's a whole bunch of countries where you'll have robotaxis spread to. And then when you get the price point low enough, you start hitting lower income countries like here in Thailand or Malaysia. Philippines is going to be, some of these countries. I just took a grab ride from the mall here, and it was like, I don't know, 2 miles. It was like $1.75. The price of rides is really, really cheap in places like I'm in Cambodia right now, but Cambodia, Thailand, whatever. It's like, a fifth, a quarter, a fifth the cost, or a third of the cost of a Uber ride in the US. So it doesn't make sense to run robo taxis in markets where the price is cheap when you can make more money and running them in markets where the price is high. Now has a lot of secret deals to promote products on their side channels, sometimes on the main channel. I heard from a friend they often accept startup stock. Startup stock, ew. Well, please tell some of those sponsors to contact me. Arthur Blake says by level 4 or 5, I meant whether supervised is required or not. Then just say that. Right now we have FSD supervised. When does it become FSD unsupervised? I really want to fight against. It's not. I'm not mad at you. I want to fight against this obsession people have with the level system. The level system's nonsense. Is it better than human or isn't it? Once it's better than human, like if you really understand FSD, AI. Let's say there is a level 3, a level 4, and a level 5. The minute it hits level 4, level 5 is fixed in like a week. Right? It's just like I think people don't get that. There were statements by Elon, Tesla owners would get some kind of stock option or ownership on XAI. What would you expect on that? I don't think about that. I don't worry about that. I don't care about that. I don't know that that's important for Tesla. Do I see a point where Tesla simply sells the software for robotaxi and other companies make the vehicles? No, because Tesla's better at making vehicles. It's not just software. It's software and hardware. They've talked about licensing FSD to other companies. I think BYD is a really good candidate. That's another topic. There's all this talk about who's Tesla going to license FSD to first. I think the best candidate for FSD is BYD. Although this Xiaomi, I posted this at the beginning of the video. This is the co-founder and vice chairman of Xiaomi, and I didn't post his Chinese part of his post, but you can look for Ray for Tesla on X, and he said a lot of positive things about FSD. So Xiaomi is a new EV maker in China, and they're very successful manufacturing company making electronic products, so maybe they'll. I don't think they're at volume yet, but maybe they'll do FSD. Do I see? Dan B says my personal opinion is Tesla gets to 20 million Teslas total by 20 not 2030, not 20 million per year. Oh, they should have 20 million long before like 2027, 2028. We'll see. It's hard to say. The big question is how fast does Cybercab ramp? How fast, like the current plans we're getting to 3 million vehicles by the end of 2025. So, then you need the next gen vehicle to ramp. What about India, the Tesla bus maybe? I don't see manufacturing in India making sense for a long. I don't think Tesla selling cars or selling rides in India making sense for a long time because the market is so small when you get to the high end for selling vehicles, and the price of rides there is so low. The price of hiring a driver is shockingly low. Perhaps the first FSD will be in Robotaxi. My side channel is going to be Bikini Nomad. My girlfriend and I are going to travel, and we're going to do videos about nomad life, and she's gonna wear the bikini. Just to be clear, not me. Uh, Briefly, we're not gonna overdo the bikini thing. I have all kinds of ideas about that, but I'm not sure we're even gonna do the bikini nomad thing. But that's my dream side channel. Then we get like sponsors to provide us free hotels and flights to go to their resort and then make videos about their resort and how great it is for digital nomad to visit their place. That's a good idea, isn't it? I think it's a good idea. Um, BYD is terrified, understands the path Elon is charting. They want in. I don't know if BYD is terrified, but I think BYD sees BYD's smart, and they're a Tesla partner. Like they sell batteries to Tesla. Robotaxi is impossible in India. If it's better, okay. So this is the thing: human drivers in India are not very good, and the accident rate is high. So if robotaxi is better than human, if FSD is better than human, it'll be better than human in India. The idea that somehow it's better than human in America, but it's not better than human in India, I don't think you understand what better than human means. I think robotaxi is bigger than transportation of goods. I don't know the answer to that question. I think they might be roughly equivalent. I think the answer to that question would be: is Uber Eats bigger than Uber? And Uber delivers, I think, other stuff. Is Uber Eats bigger than Uber rides? I don't know the answer to that. Embrace the channel. Nothing succeeds like excess bikini nomads is a great name. Do I watch Nomad Cap? I have watched some Nomad Capitalist videos. He's very obsessed with Kuala Lumpur. I went to Kuala Lumpur, which is honestly a pretty nice city. Montenegro? Toupee Nomad. Bald Nomad. What is the news on Elon's comp package? Is there a legitimate risk he leaves? My gut hunch is that they scheduled the vote. They met with large institutional shareholders first before they did this. So my gut hunch is they're confident they're going to win the vote. I don't think they're going to get 73% like they did last time, but I think they'll get 60. But I'm guessing, and I do think there's a risk. I mean, if retail shareholders vote no, Koguan Leo is going to vote no. Lost Gerbil is going to vote no. I don't know, but Lost Gerbil doesn't have that many shares. Will Lost Gerbil's customers who do have a fair amount of shares, are they going to vote no? Cybercab ramp will be fast. They did say that Cybercab would ramp fast. The next generation vehicle would ramp fast because it's a utilitarian vehicle. It might be BYD in discussion. I think if you listen to the words in the earnings call, it sounds like it's a Detroit company, or maybe it's a Volkswagen or Toyota or something. But everyone's guess is Ford, and I've had people tell me, no, I talked to somebody, it's Ford, but there's no deal yet. And my gut is that Tesla is not going to license FSD to somebody to non-EVs. They're not going to license FSD to hybrids or gas cars because that would go against the mission. The mission is self-driving EVs, not accelerate the transition to sustainable energy. If you do FSD on a gas car, you're not helping the transition to sustainable energy. So I think BYD should be in discussion with Tesla, but I don't know if that's what they're talking about. What industry do you believe will be most, I think you mean disrupted by robotaxi? Robotaxi disrupts Uber and Lyft, taxis, rental cars, and eventually it disrupts vehicle ownership. And later it disrupts mass transit. Disrupts a lot. Gary blacklisted. Someone should sit Leo down and have a little talkie-talkie. I don't think he's going to listen. The vote fails. Why would a shareholder want to see Tesla fail unless they're a mole? I had the theory that the Saudis would buy a lot of stock and they would vote no, in order to drive Elon out. That was a theory. Will the robotaxi fleet be initially Tesla vehicles and Tesla customer vehicles? Yeah, what else would it be? I don't know what else it could be. Optimus will learn to drive, I think, is irrelevant. If the cars drive, Optimus is not going to drive better than the cars drive themselves. The cars have more cameras. The communication back and forth, like let's say you were going to say, well, Optimus will use the cameras from the car. The lag that would come from communicating the information that the car sees to the robot would be too long. It wouldn't make sense. Okay, so it's midnight here in Phnom Penh, as well as in Thailand, in Cambodia, as well as in Thailand. So I think this is a good time to wrap this up. I want to thank everybody, Jim Whitehead in particular. Thank you for being in the chat. Thanks everybody for chatting. Oh, Mark Potochnik, hey, maybe I'm shadow banned, Mark. Thank you for showing up, but I'm afraid we've been going for quite a while now. I think this is an hour and a half. I think this is a good time to wrap this up. So just to summarize, really good news that the Xiaomi co-founder loves FSD. There's this story that I don't know if it's credible, that I think it's reasonably credible, maybe, that Rebecca Tanucci and Daniel Ho are leaving Tesla, and that the 500 people reporting Tanucci will be laid off, and that Elon supposedly said that any executive who retains more than 3 people who don't pass certain tests will be asked for their resignation. Is it credible? I don't know. I don't trust mainstream media when they report stories like this. We've seen too many of these stories turn out to be false before. And then Elon unfollowed both Sawyer Merritt and Hallmar's blog shortly after this happened, which is a sign that he wasn't happy with them sharing the story. So we'll see. Okay. So thanks everybody so much. Please support me as a YouTube channel member, as a subscriber on the X platform, on Patreon, on the Daily Lie. I haven't been doing much on the Daily Lie lately, but I am wearing the Daily Lie shirt. Yeah, well, I have some other videos I'm thinking about doing. I have an unrelated video I'm going to be publishing shortly about sort of like a test bikini nomad thing with no bikini in it, about travel in Thailand. So we'll see. All right, thanks everybody so much. Bye bye.